how has the MMA changed since then? What causes those changes?
Well, what started is that everybody started realizing that if you don't have Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, if you don't know Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, you're not going to be a champion. And that was proven. Without a doubt. Whatever. I'm a world champion boxer. Who cares? You don't understand Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and the concepts and what they do and how great they are at what they do, you're not winning nothing. So that's what it showed, and everybody started learning the Jiu-Jitsu and getting to that point where now it's not about Jiu-Jitsu. Now it's about who the better athlete is, because everybody's cross-training, everybody's training properly. But back in those days, it was like, my style. But no, it proved it time and time again. You can't just be a wrestler and enter a competition. You can't just be a striker and enter this kind of competition. Gracie Jiu-Jitsu as a single art, is the most effective art in the world. As just one art for that kind of competition. The best.
Interesting. So if there is a young kid, let's say I have a son, if I wanted him to become a MMA fighter, when should he start training, and should he focus on one particular discipline first and then deviate towards learning other disciplines, or come to gym like AKA and learn everything as a generalist?
No, there's so many different ways you can approach this, but the number one way I would approach it is this. If you're going to be a fighter and you're going to stick to one thing because you can learn everything else later, wrestling number one. So because of the reason why I say wrestling, because if you're going to be an MMA fighter, he who controls where the fight takes place is going to be the winner the majority of the time. So as long as you learn jiu-jitsu, as long as you learn the stand-up, the wrestler is going to be able to dictate. So I would say if you're going to have your boy or girl and she wants to be an MMA fighter, then wrestling is number one. They need to have the fundamentals of wrestling and keep improving on wrestling. One person in particular that I think is going to be a great all-timer is Aaron Pico from Bellator.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because Aaron Pico was one of those individuals that was a national boxing champion, but he was a wrestling. He wrestled and he did really well, and he's also pancration champion. But the pancration was not as big a deal as so much as the boxing and the wrestling. But the wrestling is number one.
Why isn't he in UFC yet? Do you know?
He wasn't in the UFC because the UFC during those times wouldn't take anybody with 0 fights.
Oh, I see.
And Aaron and Bellator takes opportunities with individuals that they see they have great potential, and they'll sign them without any fights. UFC traditionally, you have to have a good amount of fights.
Yes.
Not everybody, and in Aaron's particular case, I think Aaron would have been taken with the UFC, but I think the mentality is that they don't take anybody with no fights. So I think that they weren't shopped to the UFC. I don't think Aaron was because of that reason. But make no mistake about it, I think if he was shopped to the UFC, I think Aaron would have been with the UFC too.